and we have a decision to make: paper or plastic, classics or new age. On tonight's episode of Randall's Comics and you know. Hello and welcome to another episode of Randall's Comics and you know. Hope everyone is having a wonderful week, and I hope everybody had a nice Mother's Day. You know, that's a special time that we get to tell our moms that we love them, the moms that are here and the moms that aren't here. My mother is no longer with us, but like I said, you know, think about her every day and the impact she made on my lives and the lives of others, and you know, love you, Mom. And like I said, you know, I've been thinking about something as far as the paper quality of comic books. Now, when I first started collecting, the paper quality of the books was a newspaper print. You know, it was like, you know, the same newspaper pulp that you get from a magazine, and which isn't bad, you know. And actually, I kind of prefer that to the new kind of plastic, kind of very sleek, very sheen, very shiny, you know, what we have today. And, you know, something about the way the color, the way the ink just soaks into that fabric, you know, it's like an artist, you know, taking paint to canvas, you know. And I mean, you can't really simulate that with the new plastic sheen type of paper that we have. And like I said, also, and we've kind of had this discussion, you know, when we have a new technology, but you know, it's just something about the way those old comic books. I mean, even when I get them out now, just the way they smell. I mean, just the way I know that's kind of weird sounding, you know, is that I don't know, I hope it's not a fetish. But anyway, the way like a book smells, the way a comic book smells, is like, you know, that paper. I mean, it's like, you know, kind of like an old library, or like an old, you know, you really can't duplicate that. And with the paper that they have now. And I guess, you know, we've had this as far as, you know, people keep saying, you know, oh, vinyl, you know, and people still do buy vinyl, you know, because they say, you know, the album just sounds better than the digital downloads. And, you know, here we go again, tastes great, less filling, you know. But, yeah, so I decided, you know, maybe I should kind of delve into the history of, you know, when this changeover kind of occurred with the newspaper print to the, of course, the more modern. I mean, pretty much all we have today is the new modern print. So let's take a look and see how that process changed over. All right, and like we said, you know, the newsprint, you know, the traditional newsprint, the traditional comic books were printed on newsprint, an economical, slightly rough paper that is a bit off-white. Newsprint is loved for its vintage feel, and is especially effective for a retro aesthetic. However, it is less commonly used now due to its tendency to yellow and deteriorate over time. But like I said, you know, those old comic books, you know, Amazing Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, those books printed, you know, those books were printed on that paper. And I think that would add, that's, in my opinion, that would add to their appeal, you know. And I guess the jury's going to be still out if the newer books with the newer paper is going to be just as popular as, you know, the old paper. But like I say, you know, I don't think the old paper is coming back. And Marvel's transition to high gloss paper for their comics was not a single event, but rather a gradual change that began in the early 90s. While there's no specific date for an official switch, the trend towards more vibrant, glossy paper began with titles like Blade, Amazing Spider-Man, and X-Men. This shift coincided with increased investment in color technology and a desire to create a more visually striking experience for readers. The exact timeline varied by title and series, but the overall trend was a move towards higher quality, more glossy paper for a larger portion of Marvel's lineup. And like I say, you know, it wasn't just Marvel moving their titles over to this new paper. Of course, DC and other comic book producers followed suit because I guess they figured at first, you know, the market wasn't there for the higher quality paper, but I get, you know, it was. And of course, the newer quality paper, it will last longer than the old newsprint because that was pulp paper. But I don't know. To me, just, you know, when I see those old, you know, when I go through my comic books, and a vast majority of them, I want to say 95% are printed on that old newspaper stock print paper, and I'm kind of biased to that paper because, like I said, you know, just the feel, the texture, the smell, even the way sometimes the color would just soak into those magazines, you know, and the newer comics, it just seems like, you know, it's just slick, you know, it's just expected, you know, it's just that high gloss magazine paper quality. But let's take a look at some examples of the old newsprint, and we'll take a look at some of the examples of the new high gloss paper and see what you guys think. All right, let's take a look. All right, welcome back, and let's take a look at the old newsprint. The first one we're going to have here is X-Men #4 with the appearance of Omega Red. And for this presentation, I'm probably going to put some gloves on. You know, I don't want to, you know, maybe add any more. And this is what they say. This is why they went to the higher, you know, gloss paper, because like I said, you know, you wouldn't have these smudges like you have on here. So I got these gloves. Let's crack it open and take a look. Alrighty. See if I can open it up. See, look at that. Look how the pages, that old newsprint just seems to just soak up, you know, that paper quality just seems to, you know, take a sniff. Breathe it in. Yeah. And yeah, you know, and I got another example here, and this is this is Iron Man #1, and you know, I'm going to take these gloves off. This isn't a really good idea. Kind of adjusting on the fly here. So this is that Iron Man #1. Nope, that's the baseball. But just take a look at that. Really. Yeah, that newsprint just, oh, if you guys could just smell this or just feel the texture on my fingers, you know, you know what I'm talking about. So we've seen some examples of the old newsprint. Let's take a look at some of the examples of the new, of course, is what every comic book is produced now, the new high gloss. So let's take a look at some of the new high gloss finishes and get your opinion on those. Alrighty, let's take a look at some high gloss. This is Spawn #341. And there's the cover. And let's take a look at the inside, shall we? And of course, you know, just And like I said, slickness, it's slick, it's sharp, you know, it's finished, it's polished, and that maybe that's what's missing from these newer books, those older books, with the old paper quality, you could see some of the the imperfections, they didn't make the paper to last forever. But these newer books, and I guess, they have their qualities. But can you smell that? You can't smell anything. It smells like Tupperware. It smells like plastic. Just joking. But anyway, yeah. And the next one we have here is a Spider-Man that I got from Comic Tom's, the C2E2. And like I said, same good production quality, nice paper, nice colors pop. But like I said, what do you think? Do you think it's missing its soul? I don't know. So what do you guys think? Paper, plastic, classical, digital downloads, I guess they both have their redeeming qualities, but let's kick it over to and turn it over to the jury and see what y'all think about, paper versus plastic, new versus old. All right, on this edition of All right, so what do you guys think? Can I put you to the Pepsi challenge? Should I like say, hey, leave in the comment down below, which one do you prefer, the old style newsprint or the new style digital high gloss magazine style paper? Very slick, very polished, very finished, but it's missing, that soul. And like I said, me personally, these are the books I grew up on, the classic newsprint. And I enjoy it to this day, as far as, when I'm going through my collection, I'm cracking books open and I'm like, touching them and I'm smelling them and I'm reading them. And it's like, it's just like cracking open an old novel, an old, like, an old leather chair, But anyway, am I being too sentimental? Is it that big of a deal? If say for instance, they're doing special covers and special this and special that, if they offered a comic book that was printed in the old style newsprint paper, would you buy it? Kind of like a throwback, they put something on an 8-track or on a vinyl, would you buy that book, if it was on the old newsprint? But I'm probably sure it would cost like twice or 3 times of what the high gloss is, because I'm pretty sure you'd have to go through a process to find an old printing plant that even has can even run that old newspaper print, those old potato mash printers. But anyway, just let me know what you think about down below. And like I said, thank you for joining me on tonight's comics and Randall's Comics. And if you like what I brought to you tonight, please smash that like and subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you get notifications when I'm releasing new content, which is typically on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. And like I said, I'm gonna piece this out, but at the same time, hope everyone had a happy Mother's Day. Hope you wished your mothers, if they're here, give them a hug. If they're not, go take them flowers. Remember them. Keep them in your memories, keep them in your thoughts, and and like I said, every day should be Mother's Day. You don't need an excuse to call your mom and thank her for the job that she did raising you, and just tell her she did a great job. And don't waste a second. If you can give her a hug today, go give her a hug. All right, you guys have a great one. And like we like to say on this channel, peace. And hope all the moms out there with us or in our thoughts, happy Mother's Day. You guys take care.